I still remember the night she took my brother. It was a dry season and the air smelled like dust and old firewood. We lived in a village by the river, a place where people told stories at night and feared the queen during the day. Jemima, our queen, was not like others. She ruled with fear, not wisdom. She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. That night my mother had told my brother not to go outside, but he was hungry. There was no food at home, and he thought he could sneak to the marketplace, maybe find something left behind. He never came back. The next morning, we heard the whispers before we saw the truth. The queen's guards had taken 3 boys. My brother was one of them. Nobody said it out loud, but we all knew. Once you went to the palace, you never returned. Some said Jemima used the children for work, making them grind millet and fetch water until their bodies gave out. Others said she had a secret dungeon beneath her palace where she kept those who disobeyed. I don't know which story was true. Maybe all of them. Days passed. My mother cried, but she never spoke against the queen. No one did. We all knew what happened to those who questioned her. But then, something changed. A man came from another village, saying he had escaped her prison. He told us what no one had dared to say before, that Jemima was afraid, not of swords, not of war, but of being forgotten. She took people to remind us she was in control. The fear kept her strong. I still don't know what happened to my brother. Maybe he was buried in the palace grounds. Maybe he was still there, waiting. But I do know one thing. Queens like Jemima don't last forever. One day, a girl named Ifeoma did what no one else dared to do. She spoke. Her little sister had been taken, just like my brother. But instead of crying in silence, Ifeoma went to the marketplace and shouted for all to hear, "Where are our children?" The crowd went quiet. You could feel the fear, thick like the dust in the air. People looked away. Some even walked in the opposite direction. No one wanted to be caught listening. The guards came quickly. They grabbed Ifeoma, dragging her toward the palace. We thought that was the end. We thought she would disappear like the rest, but she didn't. That night, something unexpected happened. The queen's palace caught fire. No one knew how it started, but people whispered that Ifeoma had set it herself. Others said it was the spirits of the lost children finally fighting back. The fire burned for hours. Guards ran in and out, shouting orders. But Jemima did not come out. By morning, the palace was nothing but blackened walls and smoke. And the queen? Gone. Some said she ran away before the fire could reach her. Others believed she burned inside, her own fear consuming her in the flames. No one ever found a body. But one thing was certain. After that night, no more children disappeared. For the first time in years, the village could breathe. At first, people were afraid to believe it. We still woke up expecting to hear another child had gone missing. But days turned to weeks, and nothing happened. The queen's guards, the ones who had terrorized us, either fled or tried to blend in like they were never part of her rule. Ifeoma came back, but she never spoke about what happened inside the palace. She was different, quieter, older somehow, like she had seen something none of us could understand. When people asked, she only said one thing. She was afraid. That was all. Without the queen, things changed. The palace ruins were left untouched. Nobody wanted to rebuild it, and nobody dared to enter. Some believed that, at night, if you stood close enough, you could still hear voices, whispers of the ones Jemima had taken. As for me, I still think about my brother, about all the others. We never got them back, and we never got answers, just silence. But Jemima, the evil queen, was gone, and in the end, that was enough. But the fear never fully left us. Even though Jemima was gone, A shadow still clung to the village. We spoke her name in hushed tones, as if saying it too loudly would bring her back. The ruins of her palace stood like a warning, a place nobody dared to touch. Even animals avoided it. Then one evening, a boy came running from the river. His face was pale, his breath short. "I saw her," he whispered. Nobody wanted to believe him, but his fear was real. He swore he had seen a woman standing by the water, dressed in dark robes, her face hidden. When he blinked, she was gone. After that, strange things started happening. Footsteps in the dirt that led nowhere. The feeling of being watched. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, a sound would echo through the village. Something between a whisper and a cry. Some said it was the spirits of the lost children, still searching for peace. Others believed Jemima never truly died, that she had escaped and was waiting for the right moment to return. But Ifeoma, the girl who had stood against her, never seemed afraid. One night, I asked her why. "She was powerful because we let her be," she said. "If we fear her, she wins." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be free of the fear. But even now, when I walk past the palace ruins, I do not look inside. I do not stop, because deep down, I am still afraid that one day Jemima will come back. The whispers did not stop. Some people in the village started leaving offerings near the palace ruins, small bowls of food, calabashes of water, even pieces of cloth. They said it was for the spirits of the lost children to keep them at peace. But I knew the truth. It was fear. They weren't trying to feed ghosts. They were trying to keep Jemima away. One night, a man named Chijioke, one of the queen's former guards, decided he had enough of the stories. He was drunk, laughing loudly in the marketplace. "Jemima is dead," he shouted. "You are all fools, fearing a ghost." The elders warned him to be careful, but he spat on the ground and marched toward the palace ruins. "I will prove it," he declared. "I will sleep there tonight." Nobody stopped him. Nobody joined him either. That night, we heard screams, not just one, but many, like voices rising together in the wind. A sharp, terrible sound that carried through the village, waking us from our sleep. By morning, we found Chijioke by the ruins, curled into himself, shaking. His hair had gone completely white. His eyes were wide, empty. He could not speak, not a single word. The elders carried him away, but he never recovered. He spent the rest of his days sitting outside his hut, staring at nothing, his mouth slightly open, as if he wanted to scream, but couldn't. After that, nobody doubted the power of Jemima's name, even if Ifeoma did not go near the ruins anymore. And neither did I, but the fear had to end. Ifeoma knew it. I knew it. The whole village knew it. We couldn't live under Jemima's shadow forever. One evening, the elders called for a gathering. The oldest among them, Papa Ekene, stood and spoke. His voice was rough, but steady. "We let her rule us through fear when she was alive," he said. "And now, even in death, we do the same." Nobody argued. We all knew it was true. "We must end this," he continued. "We must burn the ruins." A silence followed. It was one thing to avoid the palace. It was another to destroy it. What if she was still watching? What if she was waiting? But Ifeoma stood up. "I will do it," she said. One by one, others joined. My hands shook as I raised them. I was afraid, but I was tired of being afraid. That night, we gathered at the palace ruins. We carried torches, their flames flickering in the wind. The old stone walls loomed over us, cracked and blackened from the fire years ago. The air smelled wrong, like damp earth, and something older, something rotten. Then we heard it, a whisper, low, dragging, like breath against stone. It came from deep inside the ruins. My chest tightened, and for a moment I wanted to run, but Ifeoma did not move. She took a torch and threw it inside. The fire caught quickly, licking at the broken walls, crawling through the empty doorways. The heat rose, smoke curling into the night sky. And as the flames grew, the whispers turned to something else, something sharp, like a scream. We didn't stop. We fed the fire until there was nothing left to burn. By morning, the palace was gone. Only ash remained, and the whispers never came again. The fear did not vanish overnight, but it faded. The village moved forward. The lost were not forgotten, but Jemima's grip on us finally loosened. Even now, years later, when I pass the place where the palace once stood, I feel the weight of what we did. We were afraid, but in the
Life
end,
slowly
we chose
returned
not
to normal. The marketplace was lively again, filled with laughter and the smell of roasting maize. Mothers no longer clutched their children so tightly at night. People told stories by the fires, but they no longer spoke of Jemima. It was as if saying her name would breathe life back into her. Ifeoma stayed the same, quiet, watchful. But sometimes I caught her looking at the empty space where the palace once stood, as if expecting something. One evening, she came to me. "Let's go," she said. I didn't need to ask where. I already knew. The ruins were gone, but the ground where the palace had stood was different, darker, untouched by grass. The wind was still there, whispering through the trees. "I want to know what's underneath," Ifeoma said. I frowned. "What do you mean?" She knelt and started digging. At first it was just dirt, then stone, then something else, something smooth, a skull. I scrambled back, my heart pounding, but Ifeoma kept going. More bones, small ones, some still wrapped in scraps of cloth, buried deep beneath where the palace once stood. The missing children. We sat in silence, staring at what we had uncovered. The truth had been here all along. "We have to bury them properly," Ifeoma whispered, and so we did. The whole village gathered, and for the first time, we spoke their names. We gave them the respect Jemima never did. We mourned. After that, the land changed. The air felt lighter. Grass began to grow where nothing had before. Jemima's reign had ended long ago, but now, finally, so had her course. After we buried the children, the village changed. It was slow at first, just a feeling in the air. The weight that had pressed down on us for so long was gone. People walked taller, spoke louder. The marketplace felt warmer, more alive. It was as if something had been released. But there was still one last question. Where was Jemima? No one had ever found a body. No bones. No remains. Some believed she had burned in the fire all those years ago. Others thought she had escaped, hiding in another village, waiting to return. Then one day, a traveler arrived. An old woman wrapped in a dusty shawl, her back bent with age. She sat at the edge of the market, watching. Not begging, not speaking, just watching. People ignored her at first, but something about her felt wrong. Her eyes, they were sharp, too sharp for someone so old. They scanned the crowd, studying faces like she was looking for something or someone. Ifeoma was the first to notice. She watched the woman for days, staying close but never getting too near. Then, one evening, she came to me. "It's her," she said. I didn't believe it at first. How could it be? Jemima had disappeared years ago. She was young, powerful. This woman was frail, weak. But then I saw it. The way her fingers curled when she reached for food, as if she was used to holding a scepter. The way she flinched at the sound of laughter, like it was something foreign to her. And the way she looked at Ifeoma, not with fear, not with curiosity, with hatred. That night, we went to the elders. We told them what we had seen, what we suspected. They listened, their faces unreadable. Then Papa Akane spoke. If she is truly Jemima, he said, then the earth must judge her. The next morning, the old woman was brought before the village. She did not struggle. She did not speak. She only stared, her eyes flicking from face to face, as if daring someone to deny her power. But she had no power left. The elders made their decision. She would be taken to the river, the same river where she had once ordered children to be drowned, where her guards had washed the blood from their hands. She did not beg. She did not scream. She only smiled, a slow, knowing smile, as if she had already won. And as the water closed over her, I swear I heard it, a whisper, software, cold, laughing. Even after she was gone, the whisper stayed with me. I told myself it was just the wind, just my mind playing tricks. But some nights, when everything was quiet, I could still hear it. A faint sound, like dry leaves rustling, like a breath against my ear. Jemima was dead. We all saw it. The river had swallowed her, just as it had swallowed so many before. The elders said justice had been done. The village moved on, but I wasn't sure if it was over. A few weeks after she was taken to the river, strange things started happening again. Nothing big, just little things easy to ignore. A woman fetching water swore she saw a shadow move beneath the river's surface. A child woke up crying, saying someone was whispering his name. The air felt colder near the place where she had been drowned. And then Ifeoma fell sick. At first, it was just tiredness, then fever, then nightmares. She would wake up gasping, clutching at her throat as if something was squeezing it. She couldn't explain it, only that she felt watched. "It's her," she whispered to me one night. Her voice was weak, her skin damp with sweat. "She's not gone." I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew. Jemima had never been just a person. She was fear itself, and fear doesn't die so easily. The elders came together again. This time, they did not argue. They knew what had to be done. "We must cleanse the river," Papa Kenny said. The whole village gathered, women, men, even the children. We brought salt, herbs, prayers, anything to break whatever hold Jemima still had. We stood by the water's edge, the same place where she had been taken. The sky was dark, no wind, the air heavy. Then we poured the salt into the river. The moment it touched the water, the wind howled. A deep, sharp gust, stronger than any we had felt before. The river churned, the surface rippling violently. The whispers rose, a chorus of voices, high, low, angry, pleading, then silence. The air settled. The river was calm again. The weight in my chest loosened. "And Ifeoma?" She woke up the next morning, a fever gone. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. She smiled for the first time in weeks. Jemima was gone, truly gone. The village was finally free.